Welcome to Can You Believe? I am Brad Pomerance. You may know me from Jewish Life Television, gltv.tv. Today we are going to try to turn the page and look at the glass half full. And we have a special guest who will help us do that. But as we think about how we can look at the glass half full, I want to look backward and then look forward and see that in a lot of ways, tough days, but we are a miracle. The fact that Israel exists today, the fact that diaspora exists today, because can you believe that Jews have been expelled from multiple lands? In England in 1290, in France in 1306 and 1394, throughout Western and Central Europe during the Black Plague in the mid-1300s, from Spain in 1492, from Portugal in 1497, from the Department of Tennessee by U.S. General Grant's Order Number 11 in 1862, from Russia in the late 1800s, anywhere but the Pale of Settlement. And then let's look at the land of Israel, where Jews were expelled multiple times, with the destruction of the first temple by the Babylonians in the 6th century BCE, by the Romans with the destruction of the Second Temple in the 1st century CE. And then, of course, the Bar Kokhba revolt in 132 CE. And then we have subsequent expulsions by the Byzantines, by the Persians, kicking Jews out of the land of Israel. And then after multiple expulsions, we see the land of Israel controlled by Muslim caliphates, crusaders, sultanates, the Ottomans, the British, and yet today they are living, the Jews, we are living in our ancestral homeland, and today we are speaking with Russell Robinson. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Jewish National Fund, USA. He has led this most effective organization, this visionary organization that is dedicated to the land and the people of Israel. And, sir, when you take into account what I just described, the expulsions throughout Europe, the expulsions throughout the land of Israel, it really is a miracle that we are where we are today. And in large part, we are there as a result of the Jewish National Fund, the JNF. So before we talk about where we are today, I really want to get a sense of who the JNF is. Look, I know the JNF from the blue boxes, but there's so much more to the JNF. So, sir, can you take us back and just kind of give us a history of the JNF and where the JNF started in terms of really the Fifth Zionist Congress back in the beginning of the last century?
Well, thank you, Brad, and the way you teed it up, I know that they call us a wandering Jew, and I guess there's a reason. Expelled, but when you talk about that history and you talk about the Jewish National Fund, and then you talk about the blue box. So the blue box was a methodology to raise money. But why? It was the fifth Zionist Congress over 125 years ago, before the state of Israel, when they were meeting and people were arguing and you can imagine.
Arguing? Jews were arguing? How is that possible?
It's hard to believe. and debating. But after 5 years of not doing anything except go to these meetings and debate, Theodor Herzl challenged that we needed to repurchase the land of Israel. And Brad, I use those words very carefully, repurchase the land of Israel, because the debate was, well, Israel is ours. We have a historical document. We could probably make a great legal debate about it. But what they were doing is having debates and discussions, and the blue box was the methodology to raise the money to repurchase that land of Israel. Now, again, just imagine they didn't have a podcast, Brad. They didn't have television.
No, they did
don't
not.
have. I know for your younger viewers, it's very unbelievable. There was no cell phones. There was no Instagram. You had to believe. It was based upon hope and dreams. And imagine they took food off of their plate. Literally, this was a major gift opportunity to put that coin in a blue box for hope. No maps for a 2,000-year dream to repurchase the land of Israel, which, by the way, makes Israel one of the only nations in the world that has a purchase order as part of its existence. So we didn't take the land, people sold us the land. But where was it from, Brad? It was up in the north, in the swamps. Nobody wanted the land. It was in the south, in the desert. So acre by acre by acre of land was repurchased by the Jewish National Fund starting 125 years ago. And
But I gotta ask you, sir. I mean, when we think about the notion of a Jewish state before World War II, there's no doubt that the Jewish world was divided about whether even we should be what we now know as Zionists. Not everyone was on board. And so even for those that were on board, it seems so distant and just so unlikely. I mean, they were looking at land in Russia, Azerbaijan. They were looking at land in Uganda. They were looking at land in Madagascar. I mean, the land of Israel just seemed out of reach. And yet the JNF somehow had a vision that, no, this was possible. So what was it about your, I'll call it JNF forefathers, that they were able to really just, in a very sober way, say, no, it is possible, and we are going to purchase this land because one day this dream will come true?
so I believe it deals with a lot what I talk about today in organizational life. You got to be a vision. You got to give people dreams. You got to give them a hope. And part of the loss that we have in organizational Jewish life is that we get so stuck on today and the projects, and we're not giving the people that great dreams. Theodor Herzl, how did you do it? He wrote plays and he wrote books, but it was when you read them, it was The Great Adventures. It was Wonder Woman and it was Superman. And that's what people want to be part of. But you got to know the Catskills was supposed to be part of Israel. I mean, it was bought,
I
right?
did. I know that. I've heard that. I mean, there was a
Vineland, New
part of
Jersey,
right,
Santa Rosa,
right,
California. So the most, I think, interesting thing is that wherever Jews went, they tried to be farmers and they failed. The only place they were successful was in this little place that was their ancestral soil. And if you look at the Catskills, I mean, the reason the hotels came about was they failed as farmers and they started renting out their barns and said, now this is a business. Okay. Um, so Israel, our ancestral soil, is the only place where we planted the seeds and were successful as farmers throughout the years. Even the anti-Zionists during that time, Brad, it wasn't out of being today what you would call an anti-Zionist.
right. 100%. No, of
It
course.
was a
Yeah.
group of people who had faced pogroms, who had come to America primarily, who wanted to be the hidden Yidden. They said, let's be
Oh,
Jewish.
yeah.
By the way, when the Reform movement started having services on a Sunday, it wasn't to be anti-Jewish. Matter of fact, it
Right.
was opposite. They wanted to be Jewish, but they for feared, listen, we're in this new country. We don't know what it means. Let's do our Shabbat services on Sunday with everybody else. Not because we're going against Jewish tradition. We wanted to keep Jewish tradition, but we feared what had already happened to us. When the Zionist movement was starting, and there was the American Council of Judaism here in America, which was, quote, the anti-Zionists, none of them wrote about the Israel wasn't our ancestral soil. What they wrote was, let's just visit it. Let's just go to it. Let's don't make a big deal. Let's don't bring the pogroms back to us. What the reality is if you follow that history, and this is where I talk about us, Israel, the connection. 125 years ago, you discovered that you had to repurchase that land. People, based on ancestral dreams, came there. So before I even get to the recent history,
Please.
we saw on October 7th the massacre in the Israel envelope, but nobody wants to really tell the real story. The first kibbutzim that went there were in the 1930s. 1930s. By the way, of groups of people who had no idea how to grow. And they were sent there to start farms on land repurchased from the Fifth Zionist Congress and beyond from the Jewish National Fund. Land repurchased. And
So
they
let's
went there.
talk about, but if I may, sir, let's talk about what happened after the miracle, and the miracle being the UN partition and the declaration of the State of Israel, because the JNF had the vision to repurchase land. And so that helped to seed, metaphorically and literally, the creation of this new nation. But now the new nation is formed. And so the JNF wonderfully and miraculously pivots. What does the JNF do in the wake of the creation of the Jewish state of Israel?
So now you have the creation of the State of Israel. So I'm going to talk of employment. I'm going to use trees because we're known for trees, right?
Of course you are. Yeah.
It was purely by accident, Brad.
Oh, really? Yeah. I actually knew that, but I like that you say that because I think people think it was somehow some grand design. But like you said,
We can be very
yeah,
brilliant, but the brilliance
yeah,
is that we were under Ottoman law.
right.
Ottoman law. And if you didn't plant on your land or live on your land within 7 years, you would lose it. So the Jews brought trees from the black forests of Europe, pine trees, not to grow forest. Well, pine trees, you don't have to do anything. You just have to plant them and leave them. And then the idea was to come back whenever there would be population and uproot them. So, by the way, it shows people about how long ago that repurchase under Ottoman law. Now, then they found out about watershed management and they found out
Right.
about environmental. Starting with the State of Israel, remember that between 1948 and 1956, you brought in almost 800,000 Arabs to Israel. And again, I'm using my phrases very carefully because the Arabs that they brought were Moroccan Jews, Iraqi Jews, Jews from Arab lands, Arabs. They were Jewish Arabs. And they came to Israel uneducated, inability to deal with what was the modern day of 1948. So where did also trees come out? You would see pictures of Yemenites, of Moroccans, of Jews from all these lands with truckloads of saplings because it was an employment opportunity. And they used to tell them, just go up this mountain and plant the trees. I have to tell you, if you really read, they never believed that anything would grow, but it was to give dignity to the employment. Now, that's why you go up these mountain sites on the north and would say, how did those trees grow there? Well, these people were taking their trucks and planting, and it was their opportunity for employment. Then the forestation became as a business, and then you started becoming a forester on how to protect the forester. So
And what's miraculous, if I may, sir, is that as you're building these new communities around these forests, around these farms, it was becoming abundantly clear that water was going to become a challenge. I mean, Israel, I think you know this, is in a desert. And while the sea may be in front of it, that's not potable and or a water that's appropriate for farming. And the JNF has played a pivotal role in the development of water management resources, some of which have gone global. I mean, that really is yet another example of the Israeli innovation that the entire world benefits from.
So the scarcity of water, and again, I go to forestation. Now you talk about water. How did we become, and not only Jewish National Fund, but Israel, become the leaders in water technology? Out of necessity. Necessity. So if you go and Google 25, 30 years ago, they believe that today, 2025, Israel would be out of water. The Middle East would be out of water. The great wars in the Middle East would have nothing to do with land. It was all to deal with water. Now you have 60% of the land of Israel, the Negev. You had less, 20 years ago, you had 5% of the population, 5. And the reason why nobody moved there, as you said, Brad, there's no water.
Of
So it
course.
took the Jewish National Fund together with the government and others, and we started reusing water. Now I always tell it on it talks about my beginning about dreams and vision. Ronald Lauder, that was the president of the Jewish National Fund, that's who brought me here. And he wanted to deal with the water catastrophe facing Israel. I told him I knew nothing about it. He said he knew nothing about it, so we studied it. And we had to go out and raise from the American philanthropic Jewish community, I want you to listen, wastewater. Now, what a sales item that is.
Yeah.
Because everybody's sailing on the brink of annihilation, the poor Jews, we got the ingathering of the exiles, etc. And we're going around talking about, oh, I want to buy wastewater. And the point of this is that if you give hope, dreams, vision to people, they respond. $300 million later, Israel reuses today 90% of its water. The country next to it is Spain at 27%. The United States is 5%.
I
Now,
want to talk, yeah, I want to talk, if I may, sir, about hopes and dreams. Because as we look at the fact that JNF USA is celebrating its 100th anniversary in
125.
2026, 100, but isn't the USA division? Is the
Yeah,
US? Yeah, okay, whatever it may be. I
same
want to get a
grandpa.
sense. Yeah, I want to get a sense though about how we can feel those hopes and dreams, because in America we're hurting. I mean, as you know, the FBI has said that all religious based hate crimes, Jews, who are 2% of America, are 69% of the hate crimes that are religiously motivated in America. These are really challenging times, but you are a glass half full guy. So talk to me, sir, and talk to the Jewish community and the friends of the Jewish community about why we should still be optimistic about the
So
future.
I'm more optimistic than ever. And I'll just give you historically, when was the growth of the American Jewish community? When did we add more JCCs, more synagogues were built? I want you to take a moment. It was in 1967.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
After the 6 Day War. Yeah.
What was that? We won.
Mm,
We
yeah.
won. And the hidden Yidden no longer had to be hidden. And we walked around. And think about after that, we took on the world, Brad, the world to free Soviet Jewry. Matter of fact, it was this week was, I think, the 30th anniversary or 50th anniversary. I remember the day of the Soviet Jewry March on Washington. The Jewish community brought down the Soviet Union for freedom of people. We brought more freedom to the world than any other people in the history of the world. More people today live in freedom because of the Jewish community. 67, Soviet Jewry. But then we started getting caught up into politics as our Jewish world. And Brad, I will tell you, I tell people all the time, I'm not religiously knowledgeable, but I did a study. Abraham was not Likud. Joshua was not
Right.
Yeshatid. Jacob, wasn't labor. We are politics is part of a governing system of a nation. But our ancestral soil, which dates back not 125 years, but over 3,500 years, 2,000 years of yearning, that is ours. It's our Jewish community. We're the only people with a land as part of our existence. The only people with a land as part of our
So
existence.
let me ask you about politics, because that does beg the question that it feels as if over the last, oh, I don't know, maybe decade, there's been this kind of political split between the diaspora, especially in America, and Israel. And I'm sure you see the same polls that I see. You know, while the evangelical community is very positive about the current Israeli government, American Jewry is not. I mean, today the prime minister is Mr. Netanyahu, and his ratings among Jewish Americans are very poor. I mean, 68% negative view of his leadership. And so, where do we go with that? Because to me, it's so important that the diaspora in Israel be aligned. That doesn't mean we have to be aligned on every single viewpoint, but how do we face that challenge?
How would we face the challenge if Israel was not a democracy? So
Yeah,
what we're
well, not the
saying,
truth.
what
Yeah.
we're saying is that we want a democracy, as long as it comes out our way. So politics. And
Yeah.
politics is okay. It's a governing system. I love the United States of America. I don't have to love one group of politicians over the other, because the governing system, I believe in the values of America, and I believe in the values of Israel. One. Two, I believe that I have that responsibility and right. Israel is made up of 15 million Jews. 7.5 million live within its borders. We have an opportunity and a right to be involved in Israel. Now, you want to be involved in the
That's a
political side of Israel,
yeah.
move there and vote. You want to be
Yeah.
involved in the building of Israel, join us. It's the winningest game on the face of the earth.
So you make a very valid point, because Israel is a democracy. And while Americans may have a certain view of the current government, Americans still overwhelmingly support Israel as the Jewish state. But what we also know is those numbers start to decline as ages start to decline. So while as support for the state of Israel as a nation state is very large in those that are, oh, let's say born in the 20th century, those that are born at the end of the 20th century into the 21st century don't seem to hold those same strong Zionist tendencies that to me and you are just natural.
It's
How,
not
how
their
do we
fault.
bring them home?
It's
How do
not
we bring them
anyone's
home?
fault. It's not their fault, Brad. It's our fault. Our fault.
Mm.
You're telling me that a student who doesn't know mathematics, it's the student's fault or the teacher? And what we failed in the American Jewish community is teaching. We failed because we decided that teaching wasn't about our ancestral soil. Teaching was about who the prime minister was, what the politics was, not the Zionist dream, not the vision, not the opportunities, not what Israel has made the world a better place. There's a farmer today in Africa who's bringing food onto their plate because of a place called Israel. Women women were given the first voting rights equal to men. You know when, Brad? At the first Zionist Congress.
Oh,
So if you're for
of
women's
course.
rights, thank you for being a Zionist. What other nation has brought black people in as citizens, not as slaves, up to this moment in time? Israel. Only Israel. So if you're for black rights, thank you for being a Zionist. Let's teach our young people the greatness of who we are.
What
Let's
about
show kindness.
the LGBTQ community? I mean, if
Okay.
you're a member of the LGBT community, go to the Tel Aviv Pride Parade and you'll be, embraced with open arms. I mean, I don't know if they're going to feel that same way if they walk into the Gaza Strip.
I know how they'll not feel.
Yeah.
So it's us, Brad. But why I'm optimistic is because I believe emotion means love. If you look at young people and they have a critical position on Israel, I guarantee those young people don't have a critical position on much other things because they don't know where it's located. Why Israel? I look at we have an American high school in Israel. We're taking
Mm.
over 1,700 teenagers to Israel a semester abroad. 70% of the parents have never been to Israel. Yes, they're sending their kids 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Bar and bat mitzvahs are still going on. Why? Because there's a hope and a dream still in the Jewish community. We have to add the fuel to the fire, and that's in teenagers. And we gave up on teenagers. The American Jewish community did. Now I am optimistic because I've met so many of those young people. Our fastest growing part of our donor demographic is 22 to 40. I believe in everything we're doing is about teenagers. Bring 16 and 17-year-olds, not college. It's too late. 16 and 17-year-olds on programs of 5 weeks or more to Israel, and we'll change the entire narrative. They will see a real Israel, not a perfect Israel. I don't
Not
know.
a perfect America.
I
Not a
don't.
perfect America.
By the way, I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, introduce me to perfection. I've never seen it. Even AI makes a mistake. Oh, I got to tell you, I'm not perfect. America's not perfect. Israel's not perfect, but I know the difference between Israel and the others is because every day it's trying to become better than it was yesterday. And that's all I can ever ask of my children, of my family, of my
Yeah.
friends.
I want to ask you about the word Zionism. To me, the word Zionism is a very simple concept: self determination for the Jewish people in the land of Israel. Nothing more, nothing less. But yet, somehow, Russell, this word has become a slur, and it is so profoundly upsetting and offensive. I mean, self-determination, that's a concept that is supposed to be vaulted, in kind of Western civilization. But yet when it's applied to Jewish people, somehow, we're colonialist. And uh, how do we recapture that? Because I am not willing to give up that word. I
Good,
think it's a
because we
word.
use it here
Yeah.
with a big Z. And I believe
Yeah.
that it's about pride. It's about pride. Don't apologize. Don't apologize. I have nothing to apologize for. I have a nation that came to us based upon a third book of our five books, Lech Lecha, go forward to new land. It is
Right.
ours. And we are developing and building it, and we're doing things like creating spaces for people with special needs. Wow. Nowhere else in that area does. We create formulas to help millions of people on medicines and technology. Israel makes the world a better place. Say it proudly. Be proud. Zionism, I'm not giving up on it. It's my word. It's my name. We gave up on the pride of being Zionists, and we cannot. We have to say it, be proud, spread it out, and talk about it. It's great. And if you
And
want
the
to
thing,
debate it, but you're going to debate and lose because it's about our self-determination of our people. And what we've done with that is we've made the world a better place.
so where do we go from here? I mean, you made me feel a little better, and for that I thank you. But honestly, where do individual Jews, where do individual supporter of Israel go from here? The war in Gaza is all but over. Where do we go to recapture the magic, to recapture that special feeling surrounding the pride that we have about Israel, Zionism, a state that is flawed just like all other states, but a state that deserves all the love that France and Belgium and Zambia and the United States and Canada and every other nation deserves?
So I'm going to give you a couple of points. One, social media. Quit
Yeah.
debating the hate. You're not going to win, but I'll tell you how
Yeah.
you win. Find every good story on Israel and Jewish people and repost it and repost it and repost it. Forget
Yep.
the hate, but repost. There's a lot, thousands, millions of people who are putting great things that are happening in Israel. Good news. Print it, repost it, be proud of it. Write the phrase, Israel makes the world a better place. Let's all just say it over and over.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
hashtag, it'll become New York. I love New York was a phrase created. Let's keep saying, I
Yeah.
love Israel. Go to Israel, visit Israel, and invest in our young people. I am telling you, the great shame again, Brad, is that 95% of our Jewish children are not going to day school. That's the reality. It's not going to change. You cannot leave the 95% on the sideline. They're wanting to know, they're asking to know, they're questioning. Let's bring them to Israel when they're young and let's bring them on programs. There's a lot of programs. We'll add new programs. There's school semesters. There's other programs. Bring them. Let them learn about Israel. If they see the real Israel, they're not going to see a perfect Israel. They're going to see a great Israel. Great Israel, because they're going to walk down the old city to go to the Kotel on Friday, and they're going to walk by a Muslim who's praying. Wow,
Right.
really? And they're
And
going to
they're going to
go to a
walk and they're going to walk along the coast in Tel Aviv, which in my opinion is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world.
right.
I mean, the coast of Tel Aviv, forget it.
And they're going to have a great debate in Israel about where the best sushi is. And they're going to debate about coffee. And they're going to start debating with the taxi driver of where to get yogurt. That is Israel. That's Judaism. We're great people. And I'm seeing it across this country. I see it in Israel, by the way, Brad. In the north and the south of Israel are this new young generation, which are going to be the political leaders of tomorrow. But they're not about right or left or religious or non-religious. They're about shared values and common destiny. Let's teach that. Let's express about Israel making the world a better place. Let's talk about the Jews are great people, and God, am I glad I'm a Jew. And I'm part of 3,500 years of winning seasons.
Literally.
A couple of bad games, but a lot of winning seasons. And all those places you named that we're expelled from, most of them aren't around. We're a winner.
His name is Russell Robinson. He is the CEO of the Jewish National Fund. The Jerusalem Post called him one of the top Zionists in the diaspora, and now we know why. If you want to learn more about the JNF, go to their website, jnf.org. Russell, thank you, thank you, thank you. My name is Brad Pomerance. You are listening to Can You Believe?